So this week, Lewis shocked the world by declaring that he was moving to Ferrari for the 2025 season. Within this video, we're going to be talking all about 2024. I'm going to make my driver standing predictions for the end of the season. I want you to let me know down in the comments who you think is going to win the title this year. Do you think anybody else has a chance other than Max in that Red Bull? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, why don't you hit like on this video? Well, let's get straight into it. So, first off, I think the two bottom are quite obvious if you've been following Formula One. There is a team who are struggling a lot. They've recently changed team principal. There's a lot going on at the team. Do they really have the funding? So in 20th place, I am putting Kevin Magnussen. Now, I think Kevin Magnussen on his day can pull off a blinder. I think he has the capabilities of that. But does he have the car underneath him? For me, the answer, I don't think he will have. The new team principal, Ayo Kimitsu, has already said that he expects to come to Bahrain towards the back end of the field, and that doesn't breed confidence within the team. Next up, on to 19th place. You've probably already guessed it. We're going with Nico Hülkenberg. Now, I do think this season, I think everybody on the grid is going to pick up a point. I think at some point, every car is going to be able to collect points if they capitalise on the what's going on each weekend. So I think Nico Hülkenberg will surprise people. I think he'll pick up some points and do well in qualifying, but I don't think it's going to be anything better than 19th place. Next up, I'm going to go with Guan Yu Zhou. Now, I think from about 18th to probably 12th, 13th, I think it's going to be really, really tight because they're going to be what I class as the back markers. I think you're going to have Alfa Romeo. I think you're going to have, obviously, Haas. I think you're going to have the Alpines of Gasly and Ocon. But in 18th place, I'm going with Guan Yu Zhou. Don't get me wrong, I think he's been very good over the past 2 seasons, given the machinery that he's got. Do I think that he's doing enough for Audi to keep him on? I'm not 100% sure, especially with some of the drivers available heading into the 2025 season, and then the effect that could have on the 2026 lineups. So, in 18th place, I've gone with Guan Yu Zhou. Now, next up, you'll have seen my team predictions. If you haven't, that will be linked in the corner right now. But in 17th place, I've gone with Esteban Ocon. Now, I think he's going to be a bit distracted this year. Now, obviously, with Lewis moving to Ferrari, the Mercedes seat is available. And previously, Esteban Ocon has been managed by Toto Wolff at Mercedes. Is his head going to be looking at that seat? Is he going to be on the money? Is he going to be in the hat for that drive? I personally think he will be, but I think it'll prove too much pressure, and I think that he's going to end up struggling this season, and I think he's going to finish in 17th place. Now, I think the Williams team are going to make a big step forward heading into this next season. Now, their standings in the drivers and constructors that I've given might not show that, like, in standings order, but I do think they're going to take a step forward. I think the Alpines are going to be behind Williams, but I do think other teams are going to take a step up. I think in 16th place, I think we're going to see Logan Sargent. I think he's going to have a better year than last year, and I think he's actually going to provide James Vowles with a bit of a decision to make. But is it really going to be a decision? Is Alex Albon going to stay at the team for another year, or is he going to be in line for the Mercedes seat, the Red Bull seat? Who knows? So, next up into 15th place, it's another Alfa Romeo. It is Valtteri Bottas. I think he's going to surprise a few people and have a few good results this season. I think he's got all the capabilities, but will he have the machinery? I don't think he's going to be a consistent point scorer, but I don't think it'll be down to him. I think it'll be machinery based. We obviously all know the problems that the Ferrari engines had, but that is something which hopefully reliability wise they'll have fixed heading into the next season, because they are allowed to do that during the engine freeze. But So yeah, I think Valtteri Bottas is going to finish 15th place in the drivers' standings. Next up is the other Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Now, I really like Gasly. I think he's a very, very good driver. I think the move to Alpine was the right one to get away from the Red Bull Driver Academy, but I think it's now time for him to step up. I think he's going to outperform the car. I think he's going to have a really good season and put himself in the running for a front end seat. Will he get himself an opportunity at Mercedes, or could he fill in a slot for someone else who may move teams? Now, next up, in 13th place, I'm putting Alex Albon. Now, I personally think that Albon will end up taking the Mercedes seat, but rumour has it he has been offered a 3-year contract to go back to Red Bull and replace Sergio Perez for 2025, 26 and 27. But we'll have to keep our eyes on the social media and everything that's going off to see if that ends up being true. Now, for me, I really like Alex Albon. I think he did a brilliant job for Williams last season, and I think he could take the team so much more forward than he currently has done. But will he stick it out? Will he do another year? Will he stay till the change of regulations? I don't think he will. But that's for another video, a video which will be coming out tomorrow. So make sure to keep your eyes peeled on the channel for that. Now, in 12th place, we're going to have the first Visa Cash App Racing Balls. Now, I'm just going to call them RB Racing Balls, something like that throughout this season. So if I'm ever talking about RB or Racing Balls, obviously that is Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. In 12th place, I'm going with Yuki Tsunoda. I think they're going to have a massive step up this season. They're essentially joining forces with Red Bull, working in the same factory, taking all the parts that they're legally allowed to, and it wouldn't surprise me if they end up having bits that they aren't allowed, but we never find out. We know what the FIA is like, we know who's in charge of the FIA, and we know the support they have for Red Bull. So in 12th place, I'm going with Yuki Tsunoda, and I do think that this is going to be his final year within Red Bull. In 11th place, we're going to see the first Aston Martin, and obviously I think everybody can guess who it's going to be. For me, it's going to be Lance Stroll in 11th place. I think he's going to do what he usually does, have an okay season, be in and around it, but nothing really special. Might have a few good qualifying performances and the odd time where he out-qualifies and out-races Fernando Alonso, but I don't think he's going to be consistent enough to be anywhere higher than P11. Next up, I'm going into P10, and this is where we're going to see the first McLaren. Realistically, I think from P10 to probably 6th, 5th, 4th, maybe even really P10 to P2, I think it's going to be really close this year. I think we're going to have 3 teams at the front, maybe even 4 with Aston Martin included as well. But I think Oscar Piastri, I think he's going to have another really good season. I think he's going to start off a little bit shaky, but I think he's going to come into his own towards the back end of the season, and I think he's going to finish in 10th place. In P9, we have the second Aston Martin. I think we're going to see Fernando Alonso into P9. I do think that Fernando Alonso will probably have his head turned during this season. There's going to be a range of seats available heading into 25. You've got Perez out of contract. You've got Lewis Hamilton moving to Ferrari. You've got the changes at Alfa Romeo going to Audi. That could be a potential seat to look at. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Yes, they have long-term contracts, but we all know in the world of sport, a contract can be bought out. So will Alonso have his head turned this year? Let me know down in the comments. I think he will. Will he stay at Aston Martin or will he move on? Also, let me know down in the comments. Next up, in 8th place, we're going to see the second Racing Bulls RB car, and I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to have an outstanding season. season. I think he's going to mix it amongst the best, and given that he's probably fully recovered from his injury now, he's back in a good place, has a full pre-season amongst him rather than jumping in after Nick de Vries never really hit the heights everybody expected him to. So I think Daniel Ricciardo, I think he's going to finish P8. I think he's battling it out for that Red Bull seat for 2025, and I think it's going to be wonderful to see Daniel Ricciardo put on a show for us. In 6th place, we're going to see the first Ferrari. I think Charles Leclerc is going to do miles better this season than Carlos Sainz. I know you all got scared there thinking I was putting Charles Leclerc in P7, but no, I think Charles is going to have an excellent season. So in P7, it's going to be Carlos Sainz. With obviously the recent news of Lewis Hamilton replacing him, I think he's going to find himself in a position where he feels hard done to, and I think it's going to affect his driver performance. I think it's going to affect things that happen, and I think you're going to have a lot of fans thinking that Carlos is going to be hard done to this season. But for me, I just think he's going to struggle. Hopefully, he has a good final season with Ferrari and he finds himself a second seat. Hopefully, he's in line for that Mercedes seat. I'm going to have a chat about that in a video tomorrow. I'm going to talk about Alex Albon. I'm going to talk about Fernando Alonso. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button so you're around for that video. Jumping now into P6. I think this is going to be the downfall of Sergio Perez. I think we're going to have 3 teams up at the front. I think they're going to take points off Checo Perez this year, and I think Checo is going to find himself in 6th place. Overall, I think this is going to be Checo's final year with Red Bull. Whatever happens, I can't see him beat Max to a world title, so I can't see him earning a new contract. They've already got their eyes set on Daniel Ricciardo. You've also got the likes of Lando Norris. You've got Carlos Sainz is now available, a former Red Bull Junior. Fernando Alonso has a contract offer on the table from Aston, but he hasn't signed it yet. So I think this is going to be Checo's final year in a Red Bull. I think he's going to finish it in P6. Now, in the next 2 places, I've really changed my mind on what I thought, because originally I had P5 a lot higher than what they are, and I've got Lewis Hamilton in P5. Now, it's not for the fact that I think he's going to struggle this year. I don't think he's going to have a bad season, but I do think we're going to get to a point where Mercedes start to favour George. I don't think, unless Lewis is in a title battle and George is way out of it, I don't think Mercedes are going to put all their eggs in Lewis's basket this season. I don't think Toto Wolff will do that. I think it's a case of, now Lewis has confirmed that he's going to Ferrari, I think it's curtains at Mercedes. Realistically, for me, if I was Lewis, I'd have liked to get out heading into the 24th season. But, so yeah, I think Lewis Hamilton is going to be in P5. Then in P4, I'm going to have George Russell. I don't think there's going to be much in it. I do think Lewis is a better driver. I think he'll outdrive George Russell this season, but I think it'll end up being, there'll be certain decisions which won't go Lewis's way. I think strategy calls will end up being in the favour of George Russell, and I think Lewis Hamilton is going to end up getting hung out to dry. And that is what is going to lead George Russell to finish 4th in the Constructors. I think Lando Norris is going to come up next in P3. I think the McLaren is going to come out the gates absolutely stonking. I really hope that it does, because I really want to see McLaren do well. Obviously, you probably all know I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, but McLaren is the team that I would follow, support. Obviously, I started watching with Lewis Hamilton, and Lando Norris has really taken over that British mantle at McLaren, and I do think he's going to have a really good season. I think he's going to find himself finishing 3rd in the drivers' standings. And in 2nd place, if you haven't guessed already, I'm going Charles Leclerc. I think he's going to have a really good season. Ferrari have committed to him. The rumour is that it's until 2029, and he's got to put on a show this year to prove that he's deserving of favouritism when Lewis Hamilton comes in. And I think he's going to find himself picking up some really good results next season. I think Ferrari are going to show a real step forward. I don't think Lewis would have made the decision to move to Ferrari if he didn't have faith in them. So Charles Leclerc, I think, is going to prove that Lewis has made the right decision by finishing P2 in the championship. And if you haven't guessed it already, I've gone for Max Verstappen as the champion this year. Now that'll put him on, is it 4 titles? We don't count 2021, but he'll be on 4 titles at the end of this year. I don't think the Red Bull's going to be as dominant as it was last year. I think other teams are going to begin to catch up. Obviously, I'm doing all this before cars have even been revealed, before testing, because I want to give an honest thought of what I've heard through the off-season rather than being fully enticed by what we see in testing. So I think testing can be I think it can show you a false narrative. So that is what I think. If you have enjoyed this video, let me know your predictions down in the comments. Who do you think is going to win the title? Do you think Mercedes are going to have a bit of a power struggle this year with Lewis and George? Obviously, Lewis now leaving. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.